Hello, and welcome to our 18th episode of our monthly video series, Election Connection. And this just happens to be our last video series of Election Connection for the 2023 calendar year. And I'm Scott Jarrett.
And I'm Ray Valenzuela, and we are your directors for Maricopa County elections. And each month we'll have a new episode of Election Connection,
where you, the viewers, can submit questions to us.
The question in today's episode come from the November Just the Facts newsletter.
And you can sign up for our newsletter by going to justthefacts.vote.
All righty. So, Scott, are you ready?
Yes.
The first question is for you. And the question is, why aren't registered independent voters not allowed to vote in all elections?
Well, as usual, our viewers are very knowledgeable and adept at elections. And they're probably asking that because we have an upcoming March presidential preference election in 2024. And that is the only election in which not all eligible or registered voters can participate. And that's because in state law, they established the March presidential preference election as a closed primary election. So that means only those voters that are registered with the parties, the political parties that have chosen to participate in that election are eligible to participate. So for the upcoming 2024 cycle, the deadline for the political parties to notify the Secretary of State, who's the filing officer, of whether they want to participate in that election was in August of 2023. And so for 2024, the Democrats have chosen and elected to participate in the March 19th presidential preference election, and the Republicans have selected to participate in that election as well. So for this upcoming March presidential preference election, registered Democrats and registered Republicans will be eligible to participate. Now, there is a Help America Vote Out Act. That's a federal law that requires any voter that does show up to a voting location that we would have to make sure that we provide them a ballot. However, if they're not registered as a Democrat or a Republican, they'd be issued a provisional ballot, and that ballot would not end up counting because you have to be registered with the party. And that is different, and it does cause a little bit of confusion from our primary elections, which typically are held in August. And those do allow those independents or party not declared voters to participate, right? And they are able to select which party they want, which party's ballot they want, whether it's the Republican ballot or the Democratic ballot. But that is for the August primary, which is an open primary, unlike the March presidential preference election, which is a closed primary. So, but thank you for that question. And it's very timely because we're only a few months away from that March presidential preference election.
Well, thank you, Scott. And to emphasize on that it's every 4 years during the presidential that we have this presidential preference, and it is a nominating election. So it is people of that party. It's like the Kiwanis Club nominating their president. Only Kiwanis Club members can nominate. In this case, only Republicans can nominate Republicans. The Republican nominee, Democrats, the Democrat nominee. So, but again, great answer, Scott, and thank you for that.
Okay, Ray. So now the tables have turned, and I'm going to ask you a question from our viewers. Are you ready?
I'll try to be.
Okay. All right. So we just had our November jurisdictional election last month. So, and the question is, will there be a recount and a hand count audit for the recent 2023 November jurisdictional election? And if not, why not?
Again, I echo what you stated. Our folks asking these questions are very inquisitive, and the answer is for local elections, and there's the statute that requires automatic recounts to be triggered, but it also indicates in that statute, 16661 for those statutory buffs that like to look up things, that a recount of the vote is required when the canvass of the returns in a primary or general. Keyword there, in a primary or general, within that margin between two candidates, or for a measure, initiative, or referendum, a proposal to amend the Constitution of Arizona. So, short answer is no, a recount, automatic recount is not triggered for local jurisdictional, example, school bond election. Those measures are not set to amend the Constitution of Arizona. So it's prescribed that it's at that higher level that the automatic recount triggers are in place. And then even in that section, it tells you it does not apply to elections for precinct committeemen, school district governing boards, community college districts, and so on and so on. So it's specific to that primary general. And I will tell you that recounts are a time-consuming endeavor. Maricopa has gone through those in these primary general elections, and quite frankly, actually, Scott is probably the more expert on recounts, being that on top of he's the co-director of elections, he's also, and I give him a shout out, the president for the elections officials of Arizona, EOA. And right now it's a timely conversation that he's talking, or we're talking as a statewide issue, the recount, because of new triggers. But I'll let him, if he wants to speak to it. But for the most part, again, per state law, automatic recounts are only required for a primary and general.
All right. Since you brought up the automatic recounts, thank you. And yes, we are working with the legislature because of those new triggers. They make those automatic recounts much more likely, and we welcome recounts. We just want to make sure that we can complete those recounts and other statutory required frameworks. Like before a federal election, before any election, we have to mail out those ballots to military and overseas voters, and federal law mandates we mail them out 45 days before an election. So we just want to make sure that we have enough time to complete the recount as well as adhere to those federal mandated laws. So, but thank you for that opportunity to provide that additional information, Ray. So I think the next part of the question was about the hand count audits, which you are the expert in. You've been doing that in Arizona for decades now, and you pretty much trained every election official in the entire state on how to do those hand count audits.
Well, it definitely is a value add. Just as you mentioned, I echo the fact once again that we want transparency. The recounts are something that, not that we can't wait to, but it's something that we know provides that assurance, especially in these primary and generals, but so too does the hand count. The hand count audit law, ARS 16602B, again, for those statutory buffs, is required, but it also indicates very clearly a hand count is required only for the countywide primary, countywide special, general, and presidential preference election, not local jurisdictional election. So it even further elaborates to emphasize that this is specifically for statewide, countywide elections, because it prescribes that. And these are the offices to be audited. So I'll provide those for you so that for our upcoming presidential preference, it's applicable. It should be one presidential. So obviously that would be the office, but it's up to 5 in a primary general, a federal race, U.S. Rep, U.S. Senator, statewide race, governor, secretary of state, attorney general, and so on. One state legislative, state senator or state rep, and one statewide ballot measure, state proposition that amends the Constitution. So again, very specific. These are the offices to be hand counted, and it does not prescribe for school boards, school questions, and so on. But it is a process by which, and I want to emphasize that we do have other checks and balances ahead of any of these other recounts or hand counts. The logic and accuracy and the observers in place when we're doing all these programming and testing. So this is just one part, but it is specific to primary, general, special, statewide, or presidential preference.
Well, thank you, Ray, and I really appreciate the statutory references for those statutory buffs. And I want to thank our viewers for tuning in today to watch this last episode of the 2023 cycle of Election Connection.
And don't forget to submit your questions in the Just the Facts newsletter next month, where we'll answer more of your elections questions that matter most to you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.